basically the idea was that we wanted to have some more like constructive Sunday calls too, where we're like learning actual real content and stuff versus our just kind of like check-in. And we still want to do the check-ins and stuff like that, but we also want to make sure that we're providing content for all of the gals that still they like are wanting that kind of stuff in their lives too. So we're going to try to balance this all out. So we'll see how it goes.
Balance the check-ins with the mindset, with like the coach development and all of that stuff. And I actually and so Kirsten, this will be probably good for you. And Julia, you maybe also. Erin, I thought about this morning. I'm like, Erin and I had run a group a really long time ago that included, we went through personal development, like what books for different types of things that you want to build, but also had some nutrition resources, but it's been really hard to cross post from Facebook in the groups. But I was thinking, Erin, I can take all of those videos and I can upload them to a YouTube channel. And that way we can cross share the links.
Yeah.
And that way everybody has access to all that information. So that is something that like moving forward, like I will make sure to get the links to everybody for if you want any of those resources also.
Yeah.
But let me see. I'm going to try to share. I'm recording. I'm going to try to share my screen. Somebody please, I don't know what's going to happen when I share my screen. So please let me know if you can't hear me, if you can't see it, or all you can see is literally all day long. I don't even know what he's doing. Okay, I want to.
No.
You guys can share my screen, or you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yay. Now I want you to be able to see what I actually want you to see though, which is right here. Now the game is, can I work Canva? Because that's a whole different ball game.
You just click present.
Ah, thank you, teacher.
You're welcome.
Erica, I'm going to come off the call because I'm driving. Like I keep on looking at the screen, and this probably isn't the best safe way to drive. So I'm going to come off. But is this being saved or uploaded later?
It will be recorded. So Kirsten, we're recording it. So I will put it in the group, and I will also put it in, well, I'll put it in the group if it's able to upload. I will definitely put it on a YouTube channel. So you'll have the link to it. Yes, please be safe.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All
and
right,
if you guys,
no problem.
If you guys could go ahead and mute yourselves also. That's okay. Awesome. Okay, so one of the things I like, this is really weird now because I can't see everybody's faces. So I'm going to try to pull you guys up so I can see you. So one of the things that I really have been thinking a lot about lately, and I know I hopped on the team page earlier this week, is just, we talk so much about how we limit ourselves. We talk about our limiting beliefs. We talk about like, these are the things that hold me back. And just doing some of the personal development that I've been reading this week, I dove back into Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. But just talking with Lizzie, talking with Erin, like having conversations with all of you guys, really thinking about, we perceive limiting beliefs as these things that keep us from getting where we want to be. Those things that we say, I can't do that. Like, I'm not able to, I'm not going to be able to get there. But we don't necessarily take the time to look at all the other things that limit us and all the other ways that we're keeping ourselves small. Because one of the biggest things is, it's easy to point out the things that you say you can't do, that thing you believe you can't do. But then I think so many of us are so focused on trying to get to the next level, to the next step, that we're like, oh my gosh, I am able to do this. I can do this. And we start focusing on our cans. And because of that, we feel like we are able, like we're like, how come I can't get to my next goal? I'm telling myself I'm able to do all these things, but it's still not working. And sitting and thinking, I really wanted to take the time to dig deep into what are those other ways that we're keeping ourselves small. Oh, there's the next button. I'm not a Canva user, Stephanie. So like, I'm navigating this as I go. So I think when we jump in, whether it's coaching, whether it's any sort of personal development, we jump into wanting to get to the next level really, really quickly. We're like, okay, perfect. Like that's where I'm going. I want to sprint towards that thing and I'm going to get there. But we don't necessarily know. It's like if we started, whether it's like with Erin with hiking or whether we're going to sprint a race, it's like, okay, like there's the finish line. but we're not necessarily looking at the map to get there, because between where I start and where I'm going to finish, there's going to be hills, there's going to be turns, there's going to be things that I need to detour around on my path, or I'm going to like run into the freaking pond if I just keep going and I'm not looking at what that roadmap actually looks like. So before we start like just like sprinting, I think it's really, really important to remember to take that step back and think about, okay, like I'm really excited, I'm really, really, really passionate. And what are the things that might prevent me from getting where I want to be? What are the things that are going to stand in my way? Because if we're looking at where we're going, but we're not looking at, and we're looking at how we're going to get there, but we're not looking at what we're going to encounter, we're not going to have the right things with us to be able to get to our goals. Like if I'm going hiking in the middle of the winter, I'm going to need a whole lot more stuff with me in order to be adequately prepared to get where I want to be. And if I don't pack winter clothing, if I don't pack something that's going to sustain me during that time, then what's going to happen is I'm going to fail. I'm going to burn out and I'm going to have to stop and I'm not going to get to my goal. And because I haven't prepared adequately, I might feel like I failed. And it's not necessarily that we failed, it's that we didn't know what we needed. And because we didn't plan in advance for that, we now are back at square one, or we feel like we're back at square one, which makes us less likely to move forward in the future. So I think the first thing when it comes to limiting beliefs and goal setting is not just looking at what you can do, it's looking at what do I need? Who's the person I need to become to get where I need to be? Because the person we are today and the person we were like 6 months ago, a year ago, whenever you started this journey, my guess is every single person watching this started their journey for a different reason, and it's developed throughout time. So the you are today, if you look back, is so much different than the you were when you started. So the biggest thing is if we don't know what's holding us down, how are we going to be able to move forward? And have you guys ever like cleaned out the pantry or like cleaned out your closet? Like nod or something. I was like, I can see all your faces. I can see your faces. Yeah. Like, so it's the equivalent of like when you go, and you can unmute yourselves too. When you go to clean out your pantry or clean your closet, what's the first step that you guys take? What do you do first?
I take everything out.
Megan, what do you do? Stephanie, I do the same thing. I take literally everything out.
Literally everything, yeah.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. My kids are out here, so they're loud. Generally, everything comes out or just whatever. I have to do mine in sections because it's usually overwhelming. But I have to have a goal in place. Like I have to, like, why am I cleaning it out? Like, what am I trying to get rid of? Because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. And I think so both of those, Stephanie, when I clean mine, I take everything out first. And then I end up feeling like Megan, like I take it out and then, because then it's out and everything's out on the counter and it's like, holy shit, what the hell did I just do? Yeah. Like, why is all of this out here? And then I'm like, okay, peace out. Like, I can't do this. I'm going to walk away. Because if you don't break it down, it is overwhelming because now it's like literally everything like I've ever gotten, like I cleaned out my pantry a couple of weeks ago and literally had like a tuna can from 2015. Like I lived at home in 2015. So like why we even had that, I don't even know.
That's my problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're carrying tuna all over the country.
I know. That's for real though. The movers will literally pack trash if you don't like block it off. So like it's a problem. So that first step, if you haven't, Megan's already learned, like, okay, if I pull it all out, I'm going to be overwhelmed. But most people, what they do is they pull everything out and then it's like you freeze because it's too much. And then you get through the middle of that process and you're like looking at all this shit that is all over the place. And you're like, I don't even know where to start. And sometimes the first place that we need to go is figuring out, it's not what do I want to keep? It's not how am I going to put it back in? Because like we need to know how we're going to put it back in. But first you need to know what you're going to get rid of. What is it that I no longer need to hold on to? It's like preparing for that, like the hiking or the running. Like, what do I not need? Okay, so we know what we need. What do we not need to have with us? Because if I've got like 2 pairs of shoes and 3 pairs of sweatshirts and like 2 extra like blankets with me and I'm going hiking and it's July, it's going to weigh me down. So it's figuring out like what's not going back in the pantry. What do I not need to have with me? And next slide. Oh, look, there we go. I'm like impressed with myself. And I think the first, thanks, Erin, I saw that. The first thing, did anybody get a chance to watch the video that was, you guys can just go ahead and unmute yourself if you're quiet, because I'm like watching your faces and I'm like, yeah, Megan, I know you might not be quiet there. Did you guys get a chance to watch the video in the Mindful Empire group this week?
Yeah.
So I think Erin, did you get a chance to watch it?
Not the one that you posted with the gal. No, I've been catching up with other ones.
No, that's okay. What it was just talking about the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are. Because who we are, like if I say like I'm a social worker, I'm not a runner, I'm a student, I'm an athlete, I don't need to do this, I do need to do that. That's going to shape how I see myself. What I tell myself about who I am, that's who I'm going to be. Because how we narrate our stories is how we live our lives. So if I say I'm too busy, I don't have any time to do anything else, I'm exhausted all the time, I'm not going to do anything to shift my action based on that narrative that I'm telling myself. Like I grew up, for example, but in school, the narrative that was fed to us about social work, and I think it's actually really similar to teachers and nurses, was you're just busy all the time. You're going to be tired. You're not going to have time. One of the big things for social work is like, you're going to have a million chart notes. You're going to be a month behind on chart notes all the time. Like you're going to be burnt out and exhausted. Like that's what makes you a good social worker. Or like you're going to be grading papers on weekends. That's just what you do. You have no time. And we're so led, like then that becomes part of who we are. Okay, well, you know what? This is just how it is because I'm a teacher. Or like, oh my gosh, like I don't have time for myself. That's just how it is because I'm a mom. Like that is what we start to tell ourselves. And because of that, we accept it. So I think I want to take like a hot second. I actually kind of hate this when they do this on calls anyway, so it won't be a very long second. But like as I'm talking through, like, are there stories, like who do you tell yourself, not about who you're not or who you want to be? Who do you tell yourself about who you are? Like, what are those like traps that you've fallen into about like who you are, who you have to be?
I definitely like feel like I fall into the like, oh, busy, like if you're busy, you're doing things. So like busy is good, but like especially during quarantine, I literally have been like, I'm not doing anything. I don't work on weekends. If it doesn't get done during my contract hours, I put my foot down last spring and it was like, I refuse to work 18-hour days. I refuse to do it. Like, this is insane. So I think that mindset shift has been super helpful because now it's like, I'm an aunt, I'm a sister, I like am a friend and a coach. And like, I am a teacher, but that's my career. That's not my identity.
Yes. It's not all of who you are.
It can't be. It's just, that's too consuming.
Megan, were you going to say something?
My kids are gone. So
okay.
I was like,
I saw you unmute yourself.
I was like, I have not had a call by myself since I've been here. So I was like, take these kids inside. Like, I don't want them out here. So he took them inside.
Yeah, I was like, I saw you unmute yourself. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, they're gone. Can you repeat the question again? Because honestly, I didn't hear the last part of it.
Yeah. What are the stories you tell yourself about who you are? Like, who is it? So what I was talking about was we limit ourselves not just by who we say we're not. Like a lot of times it's that subversive, like it's not what we're not thinking about, it's what we're focusing on. So like, what are the stories or the traps you've fallen into about who you have to be based on how you perceive yourself?
I think the biggest one for me before, it's not so much anymore, is like the title of mom is now like my only title. And that's like pretty common, but the title of mom, like, and not being able to go to work and not being able to have my own exercise routine and not being able to go out with friends and not just have the identity of being their mom as my only sense of identity, I guess, or self, because I was trapped in that for like a few years.
Yeah.
But that's gone.
I
So
think, yeah. Erin, do you have any? Oh, she's talking to Kevin.
Sorry, he's like, he has pancakes. Stuff.
Do you have it? No.
He's making pancakes.
That's important.
Pancakes.
Do you have
And they're
any that like,
gluten-free. I would say mine is the same thing. I mean, obviously me and Stephanie are kind of in a similar situation since we're both teachers, but I think a big part of mine was getting over the like perfectionist thing.
yeah.
/ overachiever thing. And not that I don't do that now, but that like not everything has to be, and I think perfect. And I think this program 10 rounds the second time through has really shown me that, because I haven't been so overly obsessive with like getting every single like round perfectly correct. And like, it's okay to get them wrong and then move on. But also that whole like cutting yourself off, you know, I do work after work hours occasionally now, but
Mhm.
it's not as frequently as it was my first few years teaching and stuff like that. And I've learned to like, or still learning to try to like do that whole relax thing, but
Yeah.
not my strongest quality.
When I think sometimes that's hard, like slowing down, and like slowing down is like, sometimes we have everything out of the pantry already. Like we have everything's in front of us and we can see it because we don't have time to organize it and put it away. And then if we slow down and relax and we walk into that room, then like we're forced to decide, what do I not want to keep anymore? And sometimes there's parts of us that it's really hard to let go of. Like there's narratives we have around ourselves that are really hard to just be like, okay, I don't want that anymore. Like I know like perfectionist tendencies for me was one of them. And I think like getting really clear on like, oh my gosh, that's something that's comfortable, that's been part of me. And then that recognition that I can, because of how I perceive myself, I can change what I do and who I am. Then we realize that it's on us. Like making that shift is now on us. And that can be really scary because it's like, oh my gosh, like my identity can shift, my identity can change. Now, what do I want to be? Because before, when it wasn't a possibility, like it's not as scary when it's not a possibility. If it's just like, well, like I'm just not this, is the other one. Like Megan, it reminds me of when you were like, my body's just not built like that. My body's just not built like that.
not going to fit into these shorts. My body is not with those white shorts.
Yeah, one might.
My
like,
hips
I
are not
know.
meant to be this small.
Yeah, or you know what?
They are now.
One of the other things, like, I mean, yeah, so like physical goals, like my body's just not built like that. Or like, I'm just not going to be healthy like I just won't be healthy if. Or I know like career goals, like I went into social work and I was like, I'm like, you know, I'm a social worker. I'm just not going to make any money. Like social workers just don't make any money, or like they just don't have any time. And it's like, those are all boxes. Like, I think we limit ourselves by saying like, well, it's just not going to be that way, because it's easier for something to not be possible than it is for us to set that goal and feel like we might not get there.
Right.
Because those are like, and that's one of the other things, Erin, that I had talked about in that video was like, what are those big scary goals that we don't even put on the table because we're scared we're not going to get there? Like, what
That's
are the
like
goals?
my doctorates right now.
Yeah. Talk to me about the doctorate.
Because I want to go back and get my nurse practitioner license and be a cardiac NP, but I keep telling myself, you're just not going to find a job. There's going to be no opportunities to work, and there's going to be this, and you've got 3 young kids, and why are you going to do that now? You make good enough money now. But I really want to do it. I just need to throw some balls into it and fly.
Well, and I think, I mean, what do you think the thing is? So what happens if you don't do it in the next 3 years or the next 4 years? Like,
and that's what I read. Who said that? What book was that? Was that something you shared? Because I'm still going to be in the same spot in 3 years. I'm just not going to have a license no matter what. So that's kind of where I'm at. Closed off for applications is in February. So I need to do it. It just opened up like 2 weeks ago.
mm-hmm.
But I just need to apply. It's just, there's so many application steps and stuff that I'm like.
And maybe you do it and it's just not right now. And that's the thing is like, maybe it's not in the first round. And I think that's something that like my mindset had to frame is like, okay, like if I want to do that thing, like I can start taking action towards something But
right,
just because I'm taking action towards something and it's not happening right away
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm failing.
right. I just feel like I need a couple years here to just kind of like adjust before I'm applying. Like I almost kind of want to apply next year and not this year, just because like this is just a crazy, I don't feel like I could dedicate and put like my whole mind to it and like all the effort that I put into school. I just don't feel like that's, I don't want to say feasible because I can make it happen. I just,
Your
for my
priority.
mental sanity. Yeah. I just have, there's so many other things going on right now and
And
that
it's
it's just
okay.
not there.
And does that mean, I mean, if it's not your priority right now, does that mean it's not on the table and you're not still
No.
committed to that?
Right. Right.
Not
Yeah.
right now doesn't mean not ever.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm only 26. Like I've got time
Girl, sit down.
I've got time to get my doctorates and everything.
Holy hell.
I'm like, I've got time. I've got time.
Literally, you're fine.
Yeah.
Wait till next year and we can do it
But
together. Wait till
that's
next year
just
we'll do
my-
it together.
The pressure I put on myself is
I'll
like,
get
just
my
like I
PhD
have to
next year
go.
with you too.
And that's,
Yeah.
and
I just feel like I just have to keep doing it and doing it and going and going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that like that drive. And to be honest, like looking back, when I first moved out here, I went into social work because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
That's what I did with nursing.
I wanted to go to law school actually, but I felt like I wasn't be good at it because I was so scared. I took my LSATs and everything. Like I got a perfect score on the logic section of my LSATs. Like I was going to go to law
That's
school.
the hardest one. What are you talking about?
Was gonna go like, and then I looked at what the cost was, and then I
Mhm.
thought about having to talk in front of others. And to be completely honest, I was just like, if you had asked me then, I would have told people. I didn't go because I don't like public speaking, because I don't like doing this. And looking back, like I didn't like to fail, and I couldn't handle what it was going to be like to lose a case, and that's why I didn't go. That and like the price tag on law school at the time was like 6 figures, and
Oh
that's
my-
a lot of money, and I didn't know if I was going to get a job, and I didn't go literally because I wasn't sure what it was going to look like long term. And then I went and got my master's, and then I graduated, and I like hopped right back in to wanting to get another master's. Like I almost went back and got a master's in OT, and then I almost
Mhm.
went back and got my like a master's in education to do ABA and become a board certified behavior analyst, because I didn't feel like I had the
Ugh.
knowledge to do the job that I was doing.
A lot of school.
Yeah.
But
when
like
I love
you're
school,
good at school, so keep doing school because you're good at it.
Mhm.
Awesome. I mean, it makes sense. I
Uh-huh.
did the same thing. You
I
know you're gonna be good
know.
at it, so just do it.
If you tell me what to do, I can do it. That feels good. And then I get the
Yeah.
stickers, and and so
Yeah.
it was this like,
The
you're
stickers
exactly
and
right,
the
Stephanie. It's like, what are
diplomas.
those? Like, I'm good at being a student. I
Yeah.
don't know what it's like to be an adult. So what do I do? Like,
Right.
No one
but
knows
like,
what it's
Megan, I
like.
think
I
the
was
thing
gonna
I was
say.
thinking of though is like the thing I'm most happy about, because I was like, even when we moved out here, I was looking at masters in OT programs, and I was like, I hate what I'm doing. I don't love it. I'm going to jump into something else.
Mhm.
And I am so glad that I waited. Not saying that because I think your NP is something you've wanted for a long time, and you have
Yeah.
goals tied to it. But at the end of the day, like if I went back now, the doctorate that I got now would be complete. I would not get like a master's in OT. I would not get a DOT. I would not get an MEd. I would do something completely
Right.
different, because really what I want, like I wanted to do it then
Right.
because of what I felt like I needed in the moment, not because of where I was
Different
going.
reasons.
And
I
if
also hate
you're,
my job, so that doesn't help. That I hate my
Oh,
job.
that's
now.
just the worst
Yeah.
feeling. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
It's like the shittiest hospital I've ever worked at, and it's just a horrible. Yeah, it's just not good. So I think I like want to quit. I kind of want to apply to school and then just quit and not work, but I can't not be able to pay for school
Mhm.
because with just my husband's salary, like I can't pay for a doctorate's program. Like that's just not realistic.
So
And I-
like who can actually pay for school? That's the real like
I don't know.
no
That's what I'm
one.
saying. No one can pay for school, and
That is complete truth. Complete
it's gonna
truth.
be
Like,
like
unrealistically expensive. Sorry. Claims are fine.
You're fine.
Can you, Megan, could you look for programs that could specifically give you like scholarships and different things like that? And then make the decision based off of that and see like, okay, feasibly, could I make it this work if I get, you know, this, and this? And if not,
And I
then
definitely
you
can.
wait till next year.
Most of them have like a military sort of like credit, and it drops it by like $15,000 to $20,000, which is huge.
If only.
But it's still going to be like $60,000 to go back to school, and that's a lot of money. Granted, we like paid our cars off and stuff right now, but I would have to also go online, and that requires me to be, I would 2 to 3 times a semester have to fly to the state where I'm in base. I want to go to Alabama. There's a school in Alabama that I want to go to, and it's all virtual, but you have to fly there 2 to 3 times a semester for 4 to 5 days for clinicals. So it's just like a whole, with the kids and Josh, and it's like a whole thing to factor in.
And it
But
sounds
Erica will
like-
be there soon to watch the kids.
Yeah, there we go. I just need you to stop your life, Erica, and watch my kids for 5 days.
So like, and I'm listening to this
Voluntold.
though, and I'm like listening to like Erin use the word feasible, and I'm like Julia, who was on here earlier, but I think she had to hop off. It was like, I was talking to her the other day, and she was like, I asked her something, and I was like, well, what's your timeline on that? Like, what do you want that to look like? She said, well, realistically, and I didn't tell her this, so now she'll watch it and she'll know I was thinking it. But she was like, well, realistically, I want, like, she's like, unrealistically, I want this. Realistically, I want this. And I'm like, my thought was like, I don't want to hear the realistic one. I want to hear the unrealistic one, because I think it's those cute, like feasible, realistic, like those are the things that keep us, we're so conditioned to need to have it figured out before we do it. Not that we need to be like impulsive and reckless. Like there's a very fine line between like impulsive and reckless and like going for it. But I think like Megan, like I hear you talking about 2 things, because it's like the logistics, but then it's also like your gut is telling you it's too much right now. And I think those like logically, like, does it work logically? And is my gut truly in it right now, are 2 very different things.
My mind won't be in it right now. And that's going back to school to be like a care provider. Like I have to be able to devote a certain percentage of my brain, and that right now will not happen. And it's not that I couldn't make it happen. It's just that like, I don't want the stress of like all of that right this second.
Yeah. I don't want that right now. And it's okay to say that's not my priority right now. And I think I actually was reading, I have the Brene Brown book like right next to me. And one of the things I literally like screenshotted it this morning, and it's really interesting because it talks about like, I'm dropping stuff everywhere. Daring leaders must care for and be connected to the people they lead. And I think that that's also really relevant to like what we're pursuing for ourselves. Like if we're going to lead ourselves, we need to be connected to ourselves and to that mission in that moment.
Right.
And it says like, we need real courage to recognize when we can't fully serve the people we lead. And I think that also goes with like, if we are pulled in too many directions and we can't fully serve like what we want to do in that moment, we have to figure out what it is we want first and go for that thing.
Like you can't pour out if your cup is empty.
Right.
No,
and I think something too that I was just thinking about when you said I don't want to hear the I don't want to hear the realistically, it's a really fine line because we weren't taught how to process any of this. If you look at it from like a generational standpoint, if our parents, I mean, you guys, I know, I'm pretty sure you guys are all older than me from what I've like, you know, hearing everyone speak. I'm only 22, but people don't know how to go for the unrealistic because we've been programmed to, no, you don't be stupid, you make good choices, you don't do that, make sure it's safe, make sure it's here. So then you get to, you know, whatever age you are and you think, well, shit, I don't want to do this anymore. But you don't know how
But now
process.
what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and you don't know how to like figure out how do I go for my goals but not be like me, who was like, well, realistically I would want to move out in a year, when unrealistically I want to move out next month. You know, it's like hard to figure out that balance because we weren't even taught. That wasn't a thing.
Yeah. I didn't realize you were still on here. I had to scroll down to see you.
I had to hop off. My dad called me. He always manages to call me in the most funniest of times, but we're back.
No, and that's like, I love that because it is. It's like, because when we were having that conversation, like in my head, I was like, tell me the unrealistic, because then we can figure out, we can look for what that action can look like. And it may not happen in 3 months. And like, if we look at what's realistic and what's unrealistic and hold those two together for us. And Megan, that's like you holding, it's like, okay, what would this look like in 2 years for me to go back? What would this
Right.
look like for me now? And if you're like, what it looks like for me now doesn't resonate with my gut, and I'm not seeing I'm not seeing the things, because sometimes we look for things like Julia, we're talking about manifesting, like we see those things pop up, we start to see like, oh my gosh, like as I take this action, things feel more settled for me, or my gut is now telling me that's something I can go for. And then we kind of know, like Megan, it's like if you started applying for applications and like you're like, oh my God, well, it's like when you moved to South Carolina. When you I don't think Stephanie can you talk about some of the things that fell into place when you started like being like, we're gonna do this?
When I moved here, like with housing and stuff, or with just like,
and selling your house.
So originally we weren't going to sell our house until August to September because Josh's report date wasn't until November 17th. We decided to list our house in like 2 weeks later. In fact, I called
hard orders.
Without hard orders. So we had no hard orders. We didn't know where we were going to be living when we got here. Like hadn't officially like put down the $4,000 on the house yet here. But they randomly decided to open up 3 lots in the front of my mom's neighborhood. And we knew we wanted to be here, but if we had waited till phase 3, it was going to be like April to March. And I was like, there's no way we can live with my parents for a year. And so they randomly opened 3 lots up there. One of them was bigger than a 1/4 acre. So Josh was like game with it. So we told the builder like, that's what we want, but we need hard orders. The day before we flew out from Washington, Josh is already gone. Like they had already left. Like I sold our house. They moved
all their stuff into an apartment, into a unit,
yes.
Like a storage unit. They sold their house in what, 72 hours?
Yes. And got on a plane and didn't have hard orders until the day before our flight. And so we ended up like getting in a contract on the house and everything. I got a job within like 3 weeks of moving here. Granted, it's a horrible job. It's like, I'm getting paid well. So, but it just like, everything just kind of like happened. And it happened within a few weeks because Josh was gone. I mean, I had to do all of it with Josh gone. He was there. He wasn't even there when we accepted an offer on the house because he was on duty.
Bonkers. But like, in those situations, like, I don't know if any of you are religious. I'm pretty religious, but like, that's like God's like making all those things fall down so that you can be lifted up in a different way. Like,
and that's just kind of how we saw it. Like, we originally had orders to Connecticut before we didn't even have orders for the state. And then the day before we flew out, the detailer called and said that the papers were approved. Like, you're going to Charleston. Here's your hard orders.
And you were like, well, good thing, because we already got some land.
Yes, because I've already gotten this. Yeah, I've already reserved this space. And
I mean, that's like, what if you had told yourself, because one of the things with the Navy is like, I don't have any control. I think that's a huge, like, I have no say in anything that happens. And if you had just looked at those orders to Connecticut and you were like, well, like, we don't have any control, we don't have any say.
Right.
If you had given up and accepted that
and just accepted it, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, like, and that's like everything that happened. Like, you're like, instead of going with that narrative, like, well, I do what I'm told, and like, this is what it is.
We made phone calls. We like routed paperwork. We did all sorts of stuff to end up here. So it's not that we didn't work for it. In the end, the grand scheme of things, the Navy's going to do what the Navy's going to do. But you can fight your way to get what you want. It's just a lot of effort.
Yeah, and you have to put in the action. Like, you have to see. Yeah, like, how am I keeping, like, am I going along with something just because it's what I've always been told to do? And can I put in action that looks differently? Like, can I put in action? Like, does the story I'm telling myself about this is just what happens and this is what I do, and the story you tell yourself about who you want to be? Like, Megan, like, you're saying, like, just put your life on hold, you can watch the kids. But like, to be completely honest, guys, like, one of the things I want to do, like, I don't want to have to worry about transferring my license to South Carolina. I don't want to have to worry about like transferring my clinical license, which is multiple $100s every single time I move, and rebuild a caseload every freaking time, and go into a different field in the area of social work and become competent in that area of field and feel incompetent every single time I move, I want to coach. Like, and I want to coach. And I think I've always like, Erin and I have been talking about this for a long time. Like, oh, we're going to be 5-star diamond. But I always like in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, like there's always social work. Like there's always, I'm never willing to tell myself like, I'm going to put in the daily action to be able to stay home and coach full time, because I'm scared it's not going to happen. Because I have people around me that like roll their eyes when I talk about it.
Like something to fall back on.
Mm-hmm. And so
granted, I love nursing, so I know that even if I still would want to keep a per diem job. I just love doing what I do.
Yeah.
Just not at this hospital.
Which is there's nothing wrong with loving what you do and wanting to do other things. I was going to say earlier, what we've been talking about and what Julia kind of hit on is I think that, yes, our generation wasn't taught to do the like different, but our generations are the ones that are trying to push to be doing the different. So like we were told, we were given like a checklist, right? You go to high school, you go to college, you get your job, you do all this stuff because that's what the generations before us were told to do. And so they only continue to like, I mean, that's what they say in literally everything, right? About like, you only teach what you know. And that doesn't mean if you're a teacher or not, you teach what you know, right? Same with like parents, when you have kids, you do the things you know, or you do the things exactly opposite of what you know because you didn't like that, right? But that's still doing what you know. And so our generation is the generation I think that's trying to push past that, like, oh, we don't have to go to college, we don't have to do this, we don't have to do the things in the orders that we were told that we have to do the things in. But I think that's where we start to struggle the most, is that pull between we want to please and do the things that we should be doing, or we think, or we've been told that we should be doing, versus what we actually want to do, versus what we think would actually be better for us, right? Like I graduated at 20. I got my master's by the time I was 22. I bought a house when I was 20, I don't know, 2 years ago, whatever that was.
She's not a math teacher, just like
math.
I'm not a math teacher.
We don't teach math.
Like, right. But like, you know what I mean? Like those were the things like, okay, you go to school, you get a job. Oh, I couldn't get a job with my bachelor's. I needed to get a master's so I could get a job. Got the job. Then it was like, oh, well, the next step would be buy a house. So buy a house. So I did that. So it's like all these steps that we're told that we need to do because it's too hard for us to try and accept, like, you know what, it's okay to go a different path. And I think that's where I'm currently at, is looking at like, I don't want to be stuck on this path of being told like, this is the next step. This is the next step.
Right.
And I think that's where coaching has come in for me. And that's where me and Erica have been talking a lot more about, like, we really do need to push that. Cause I absolutely love teaching. Like I think that was what I was meant to do, but coaching and teaching have so many similarities that this could be like, this is going to be, I can't keep saying could, because I think I have that still limiting belief about if it's going to work or not for me, is like providing that freedom and that want to do other things and still be able to teach and still be able to do stuff, but like not be
do
like,
it in Europe.
Right. Like I can't, go and get my PhD because I don't have the funds right now to do it, or I can't, whatever it might be. So that's my 2 cents on all of that.
Or I don't need my PhD. I don't need my PhD to teach in the way I want to teach.
Yeah.
And I think it's like learning that there are sometimes the emotional need that we have underneath doesn't necessarily match the label that we've been told is what's going to get us there. Like I was talking with a client yesterday about buying shit we don't need is really what the conversation was about. And we're going through this like pattern, and it goes with food too. But it was like, we were talking about like, and they were telling me, they're like, and I know, like I've been seeing this client for long enough to like have seen this pattern. And they're like, God, like I kept buying these things. Like I got like 3 different pairs of headphones, and I got like in the last year, I got a tablet. I got 3 different pairs of headphones. I got soundproof headphones, and I've ended up getting rid of all of them. And I don't even use the tablet. I'm like, what did you think those were going to buy you? And they looked at me and they're like, I thought they were going to make me more productive. I thought they were going to like, and I was like, so what was it that you actually needed? Like, what was the need underneath everything? And they're like, I needed to have the skills to feel like I was able to be productive and like actually do that. And so like, we're marketed by these things that like, what is it what's going to get me to feel the way I want to feel? And food does that too. I mean, for like one of the examples I use all the time is like, if I really want ice cream, like if I really am craving ice cream, I'm either lonely or I want to celebrate something. Because my entire life, you want a Pee-wee soccer game, you went and got ice cream.
Ice cream.
Ice cream. You had family
Yep.
coming into town, ice cream. Summer vacation, ice cream. Schwann's truck and you get to go play with your friends and you're having a 4th of July party, ice cream. In college, it's nice and warm outside. You want to go for a quick drive and like grab something on the drive that everybody can grab and go when it's quick, ice cream. All of these things. And it's like, or like, I know people that grew up shopping, like it's that like, oh, like we get to go do something together, shopping. Like, oh, like you, like, what were your rewards when you were growing up? Like, if they were tangible rewards, if they were food rewards, like, how did you reward yourself? And what does that tell you about where you're going? So kind of, I don't even know how I got on this tangent, but it's like, what are those things that we reward ourselves with and where we go? And what is the need that is actually underneath that? Do I need to feel loved? Do I need to feel that I'm on the right path? And I think that's one of the biggest things is like, am I getting to where I want to be? And who told you that's where you wanted to be? Like, who told you that that was the next step? And like, are you really going to feel proud of yourself when you get to that next step? Are you going to feel good because you're pleasing somebody else? And I think that's where we have to start teasing out. It's that like, me and Erin, you're exactly right. It's that we literally were raised by the generation that was children are seen and not heard. Like you do what you're told and that will make you happy. And now we have a whole bunch of 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old adults that are like, I'm not happy.
Yeah, they're
what do I
miserable.
do? And they've been taught to believe that well, that's just how it is. And I think that's one of those phrases that hides it is limiting in itself. That's just how it is. Because if that's just how it is, we don't even try to put in the action to change it because we don't believe we have the power to change it.
Yeah. It's funny that you said all that because I had a conversation with my friend Clarence at the gym last week, and I'm not going to get into everything we talked about, but a couple things. We were talking about relationships and, you know, why we choose what we choose and all of that fun stuff. And he was like, well, what are you not getting at home that's making you act the way you're acting? You don't even realize the way you're acting, but because of something that you're lacking at home, or maybe you're lacking within yourself, or maybe, you know, you're not getting at home that you don't even know you need, that's why you're going out and you're making choices that are not so good. Or maybe if you're having a really good day and your cup is filled, you're making choices that are really good. But if you're making choices that are really shitty and really crappy and you're kind of hating yourself, then he was like, you need to like look in here. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like it was just a mind. And Erica, when we get together, I'll have to talk about kind of more what he said.
Yeah.
It's a long one, but like just all that, like I never even asked myself. I never asked myself, what am I not getting at home? Because I thought that was bull. You know, you just kind of lived your life, you had your thing, and if you didn't get something at home, well, then that's just the way it is, you know? But then I realized, no, that's not the way it is. That's actually really toxic.
And I think that's the thing, like the stories we tell ourselves about who we are formed by who everybody around us told us we needed to be growing up. So it's this process of unlearning. It's this process of unlearning and saying like, who do I believe I am because of what other people said? And who do I know that I am because of what I say? And then deciding for yourself, who do you like, do they match who you want to be? Do they match where you want to be? Oh, actually, and look at that. There's my slide for the next one. Like which stories do you see fused to who you are? And how much of them are always just who I have been? And once you see those, and Erin, it's that like, you know, it's that deciding what goes in the trash pile. What do we not want to hold on to anymore? Again, Megan, you talk like you
mean all my big girl jeans?
Yeah, your big girl jeans. Well, Megan, you said you didn't want, like, you have gotten rid of that identity that because I'm a mom, I have no time for myself, that I don't get to be me too.
Yeah.
And Stephanie,
and it's not just like finding time too. A lot of people say, oh, I can't find the time. Like you have to make the time. Like I've gone from the, I can't find it. I don't know like when I'm supposed to do this. Like I make myself get up at 3:50 in the morning now and do my workouts before my 7 a.m. shift. Because if not, like I'm going to feel bad throughout my day. I am going to be grumpy when I get home. Like it's just like, I've put past the excuse that I work 12-hour days and like, oh, I won't work out that day. No, like you got to toss that.
Yeah, I used to, when I moved out here, I did inpatient work. I moved out here immediately. I started applying for jobs. I started working. I got here in May. My first day of work was July 19th. I canceled a trip to Las Vegas to go see at a conference that Brene Brown was supposed to speak in that I had been excited for months. Spoiler alert, Stephanie, it's okay because Brene Brown, if you've read Daring Greatly, so she randomly like didn't end up being at this conference.
Yeah,
And I was like, why is she not there? And so it's when she like ran into the plexiglass and gave herself like that severe migraine.
Really bad concussion.
One of the speaking things she had to cancel was the one I was supposed to be at. So like ended up like not as disappointed as I thought I was going to be, but I literally canceled a trip I've been planning for months to Las Vegas it was for Stella and Dot, and to hear Brene Brown speak so that I could start my first week of work, because I felt like I wasn't adequate if I wasn't working with my degree, because I felt like then I was just another Navy wife and I was like depending on Brian, and like I wasn't
That's a hard one
pulling
to
my
get
weight.
past.
Yeah. And so I literally gave up that. And from that week, from July 9th of 2017 until I was written up, like I was literally for the first time in my life was written up at work in 2018, almost a year later, for like having too much overtime. Because from the week I worked for a full year, I did not work a pay period that had less than 95 hours in the pay period.
How do you get written up for having too much overtime?
We're not even going to go into that because I'm going to put this on YouTube anyway, but we will be on here for 20 minutes. And it was, but the problem was really what it came down to was our agency was punishing people for doing work because they said you need to do self-care and manage your time, but they weren't making it sustainable for the job to be done with the amount of people and the actual amount of time that we were given. So it was a system failure to provide adequate resources that was then punishing us. And to be completely honest, I could have set my boundaries a little bit better. And that's like a whole other side tangent. But there was work that needed to be done. I was in that much overtime because I couldn't look at the pieces that were being missing and weren't being done because I knew it was a detriment to the people that we served. And that wasn't okay with me. But like the thing is, like I was so far behind on notes. I would get up at 5 o'clock every morning, roll out of bed, go to work. I'd be at work by 5:45 so I could catch up on charting. And then I wouldn't leave until 9 o'clock the next night. And so like I told myself, this is just how it is. And it's until I decided that that's not how it is. And I was like, I'm going to take 20 minutes for me every day. And I did. It was with Transform 20. Like these 20 minutes are my 20 minutes. And no matter when it is, this is my time. And that turned into 45 minutes. And that turned into an hour. And that hour turned into, okay, now it's 5 o'clock and I'm doing this workout from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and anything else that doesn't get done because this is my priority. And all of a sudden I actually had more time. If you get up at 3:50 and you do that workout, but you have more of you to put in throughout the day. Yep. And that started, like it creates
kind of nice.
Yeah.
My kids aren't there.
Yeah. And that's like when I started doing the morning routine, because for a long time, the first time I did 80 day, I did it in the evenings. But then the morning routine, like that is your time that you are dictating what that first hour of your morning looks like. Nobody else is telling you what to do. It's not your parents telling you what you should be. It's not your job telling you what you can do or you can't do. It is, I'm like clicking buttons because something popped up on my screen. iTunes is trying to like upload. Okay, go back. A bunch of stuff. Yeah, but you're dictating your time. And I think that's one of the biggest things is starting to look at like, what do I believe about who I am based on what somebody else told me? And how do I say, F you, this is my choice? And doing it. Because you said, F you, like, it's not true that I can't put in a workout for myself. And you got up at 3:50 every morning to do that.
Right. No, I agree.
I think the rest of my slides are really, oh, that's a typo. I like can't handle I can handle typos because I'm not perfect and I don't do it exactly all the time. So I'm going to leave that typo in there and it's going to stay. But these are just like, I mean, I'm really busy. I don't have time for that. I love seeing you do that, but I can't, because I think we see other people do things. We're like, oh wait, they must not care as much. I think mom wise, that's probably a big one. I know social work wise, that's a big one. I'm like, oh, well, they must be taking time off because they just don't care as much about their clients. Or like they can take time for themselves because they don't care as much about their kids. I'm sure that falls into teaching also.
I think the teaching one is I can't take time if I'm sick because I don't want to do sub plans or I'm not that sick.
It's easier to go in and be sick than to create sub plans and deal with the aftermath of not being there.
Right.
Yep. And because the system isn't making it sustainable for us to do that. With social work, it was like when I quit my job, when I finally left my job, I had a month and a half worth of PTO that got paid out. I would have had 2 months worth of PTO if I hadn't gotten incredibly sick last February and had to call out. And then also had taken additional, like I had multiple, like I took a week and a half at Christmas that I almost never would have been able to take. I went 2 full years at my job without taking any PTO, because if I took PTO, it would have screwed everybody else over so badly that I just felt too guilty to do that. And then we were all getting sick because we didn't have time off. But it's just like, we live in a world that tells us like it's okay for everybody else to take a break, but it's selfish for us to do that. And and some of that comes from what the generation above us has, taught us. And then I'll leave this on here and I'll post it with it, but like, these are just things to think about, like that get in our way. Like, what are the things, and these are not mine. These are from Brene Brown. I probably need to cite it at some point.
Not going to report you for copyright or anything like that.
It's going to be Chicago style because I'm a history major and that's what we cite in. But, but like, what are those things that get in our way of having those conversations with ourselves? Like, why is it like we don't take smart risks because we're afraid of failure? Like, we get so stuck in being defined by what we haven't done or the things we feel like we haven't done fast enough. So I think that's the thing, is just because you decide to do it doesn't mean you need to do it right now. Like, it doesn't make you any less of like a person. Like, if you don't, like, if that's a goal that you have and it's not right this moment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't pay attention to those things, like we don't pay attention to things that we're afraid of or the feelings that are going unaddressed, they're going to continue to pop up. If you keep feeling the same way over and over and over, or the same situation keeps occurring and you keep responding to it in the same way, like I know Stephanie, you had talked about being religious, but it's like, I mean, I believe that if we're given the same challenge over and over and over, it's so that we can learn to respond to it differently. And then when we do respond to it differently, things tend to shift a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are, and then perfectionism. If we wait to do it perfectly, we're not ever going to do it at all.
Amen.
Yes. I think this is my last slide, but catching ourselves and really thinking this week about like, what is it that we're not doing? Not because our gut isn't in it right now, but because we don't think it's possible. I mean, Megan, I always go back to like that day you texted me about those shorts and you're like, my body's just not built that way.
My hips are not, I was like, my hips are just too wide. I cannot get into these. And I almost returned them and I was like, I'm going to try them on one more time. And it was like 10 pounds later. And I was like, bam.
Sometimes it's when we let go of what we think things need to look like and we just focus on the action. Like, it's not focusing on the outcome. And Julia, I think you and I talked a little bit about this. Your coach had mentioned it the other day. Like, it's about not focusing on the outcome, but focusing on the daily action to become who we want to become. Who is the person you need to become 100% to get where you want to be?
Yeah.
Like, what's that daily action look like?
Said earlier was like, I'm gonna, take the daily steps in order to be where I want to be. It's not just, it's so many little tiny steps, and it's gonna look different for every single person,
Yeah. And sometimes we we get to places like Megan, you got to those shorts, but I kind of want to take a second because Erin, tell everybody about yesterday. Like I'll share if you don't hit on it, but like there are so many things about yesterday that stick out to me, but like just tell everybody about yesterday.
So I finally caved, and Erica got me to go to their favorite store, Purpose. And I spent way too much money, but that's another side note.
Sorry, guys.
But I
Best
have
store
literally,
ever.
like, no clothes that fit me anymore because I've gotten in such good shape. And I told them, we did like a styling thing, and you have to tell them like what your sizes are, whatever. And I told them my size jeans, and then I got there, and the size did not fit whatsoever. So I'm trying these pants on, and Erica goes, Erin, do you want me to tell you what size those pants are? And I said, not really.
She had said 5 minutes before we walked in, and they'd pulled the size they had pulled for me was the same size Erin was going to need if Erin didn't need smaller. And she's like, I'm like, we're going to have to go get you a size lower. And she's like, no, I don't think I'm mentally prepared for that. Then later on, knowing there was that size already in the waiting room or in the dressing room, because that's what I was in. Yeah. Put them on.
So anywho, I was wearing a size 0 and a size 2 yesterday. And my brain literally could not accept that for a really long time. And then the fact that I've never really gone to a clothing store and tried stuff on and had everything fit or everything look good, or I had to just say oh, I don't like this because I don't like a certain part of it, right? It was always before, whenever I'd go shopping, it would be oh, well, you can't fit into this, or this doesn't look good on you because XYZ. Instead, it was I tried stuff on, and literally we were narrowing down based off of well, all of this fits and all of it looks good. And this is not me bragging, but it was just a shocking. Yeah. So anyways, that was yesterday.
That's Purpose. I mean, first of all, I adore them and I'm obsessed with them. And it still cracks me up, Megan, that the first time you went, I think it took you 4 months. I posted about it on my story, and then you went there,
and I just walked in one day.
Yeah, you didn't want to tell me.
And I was like, I may be hooked because now I have rewards points to use, and I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
So.
And I know that was the thing, because I remember you and I, Megan, went to the sweater thing because you wanted pictures, you wanted clothing for, I don't think I've ever told
family
you this,
pictures.
But you wanted clothing for family pictures, and there was only there were 2 things that you really loved. And I remember and you were excited about those 2 things, but I remember feeling disappointed because I had wanted you to have that moment of oh my God, I put these on. I put so many things on and I love it. And I remember that was something in the spring and this summer and even this fall, as you have found more things, I think back to that first time when it was just those 2 things. And I remember feeling you had felt disappointed that there wasn't more, but and then every single time seeing you get those things and love them now, I think back and I'm look how much, because it's not about it's not about what you weigh. It's not about what your body looks like. It's about how you feel about what
I feel good shopping now.
Yeah.
I love it.
And Erin, yesterday when you Erin slid her foot into a pair of shoes, which is the coolest pair of shoes ever, by the way. And she's oh my God, it just slid right in. And it was and you looked at me and you're I have never in my life been shopping and felt everything felt good. Everything just worked.
Right.
And there are things that you put on that you did not love and you're okay, no thanks. But those weren't your focus because it was about what you did love. That was really cool. So that is all I have for you. What did you guys think about? Oh, actually, let me stop sharing now before we talk about this. or not sharing. Well, I can stop sharing, but I also am going to stop recording.